Good day, good night. Welcome to Euro Today. I'm Kev Laramee, joined by Duane Rollins as always. And Duane, it is, of course, the wrap-up of Group B and the beginning and end of Group C today. We saw Belgium, Denmark, emotional game. We also saw Netherlands playing today. Also, North Macedonia against Austria. That was, anyways, we'll talk about all the games in just a second. But first, how are you today, Duane?
Doing well. We saw the first team eliminated today, as well as some teams advancing. So that means we're into the meat of a tournament, does it not?
Well, yes, exactly. And let's start with Ukraine this morning early. Group C, Ukraine victory 2-1 against North Macedonia. And, of course, it could have been 3-1, maybe even more. You know, some goalkeepers know how to save penalties, Duane, and we saw that today.
Yeah, that was a very nice penalty save for sure. Very, very strong performance there. And North Macedonia, the aforementioned team that was eliminated because they both tiebreakers go against them now. So they're done. Look, they deserve credit for getting this thing and having the puncher's choice and all that sort of chance, I should say, and all that sort of sense. But, you know, the talent gap was there, and they ultimately are just a little bit shy in that. And you know, I think in future it would be interesting to compare, if they keep this format, the qualifying format, it would be very interesting to sort of compare how the Group C Nations League and Group D Nations League teams do over the years. The Group C Nations League team, for those that don't know, is Scotland, so we can watch them tomorrow. So Ukraine, I thought they did what they had to do today. I don't know if I was as impressed as I maybe wanted to be by them, but nonetheless, as you say, they were full measure for this win, and you beat the teams in front of you.
Yeah, Ukraine, two games played, 1 victory, 1 loss, 4 goals for, 4 goals against. Differential might come to play in some group, we'll see, but in Group C, Ukraine and Austria now are equal on points. We'll talk about Austria in just a minute. But when we look at North Macedonia, Duane, of course, they were the underdog, and Pandev scored like 2 goals that were called back offside, and Cinderella struck midnight, all these narrative. But the eye test and the scoreboard maybe doesn't give it justice, because they did perform actually better than some people anticipated. Some people thought they were going to concede 20,000 goals in a game.
Some people sure. And if you take a quick look at the ratings or the rankings, I should say, and you know, your knowledge of it, if you're casual, you'd be like, well, you know, where is even the country? I'm sure a lot of our listeners were not aware that there was a nation, just some, I won't say a lot, but I'm sure some were not aware that there was a nation called North Macedonia. Part of that's because it just changed the name recently. But
it's been 3 years, so it sounds like it's something that old. But carry on.
Again, the purpose of inviting, you know, a team that qualified in this manner is to provide hope for everyone in the Confederation. You know, conceivably, if Luxembourg got a player, maybe they could be in a tournament. There's no other way they ever would, and this is how they go through. And their fans had a chance to go and be part of the festival, and you know, just like at a World Cup, there's always some teams there that, you know, are clearly no hopers, but they add value to the competition. That this is kind of where it's at. You know, the days I started watching the Euros when it was insanely good. You know, to say at one point there's only 8 teams in this. That would have been nuts. But you know, then they go to the 16-team format, which is when I really came in, and even that was just every game was intense, and there was value in that. But I do think that it hasn't hurt to go to 24. We're still enjoying these games, and a lot of value from seeing a team like North Macedonia, a country like North Macedonia, get its opportunity.
Well, it's interesting, too, because the one-player theory that you mentioned, and it's a good segue to talk about Denmark, unfortunately, with their one player suffering maybe the worst possible fate you could ever have as an athlete. You look at North Macedonia with Pandev, a legend who's might end, and then you have Amos there to support. You see there that it's enough sometimes to just squeak by in qualifying and the Nations League here. But when you look at other countries that in the past we thought they were a one-off player, like Portugal, over the years they start to build around that. And maybe we're seeing up-and-coming countries that are in just a different state of progress. North Macedonia is in the first step of that journey. So was Iceland a couple of years ago. So it's like, oh yeah, it's so beautiful. And then you get a setback. And then it's how you move on from it, right? Iceland's not here this year. And how are they going to move on from here? How are you going to move on from actually suffering tough defeats like North Macedonia, moving on from it? So those are all great things to learn. And the fact that North Macedonia is not even supported, Duane, by the state itself is actually make their journey to the Euro even more worthwhile.
No, 100%. And, we don't want to be condescending, but at the same time, every country is realistic about its chances into a tournament. And I'm sure that some of their fans would have convinced themselves of the inevitable possibility if this happens and then this happens and that sort of thing. But realistically, you get there, you play your games, and you still have a game to enjoy too. So
their friends were thinking, if this team has COVID, if this team has COVID, if this team has COVID, maybe we could win. Yeah,
precisely. I mean, look, if the Canadian national team makes the World Cup in 2022, I will be having those conversations with myself. Everyone else will be like, oh, maybe let's score a goal. I'll be like, hey, you know what? If all the breaks go our way, maybe we could win.
Yeah, like if every single team we play against lose their best player the day before and they can't play, maybe we got a shot. Anyways, that's the Canadian in me talking.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure that it was the same there. And as I say, value add for sure. And the other side of the Group C and Group B for that matter, but the other side, because the Group B winners are going to be generally better. Like I think Germany's in the next Group B, so it's a decent level of teams at that level. But the Group C and the Group D winners, the other value is, of course, when we're watching the Nations League, we can remember this next time, and maybe that competition gets a little boost as well.
Yes, exactly. All right, moving on now to a team that unfortunately lost their best player for this tournament, and this was an emotional game. Of course, Christian Eriksen, Duane, I don't know if you know this, it was announced earlier on Thursday. Today's Thursday. So earlier today, he's going to have a heart defibrillator implanted. So that's that, and he has accepted that fact, and we'll see where that leads everyone involved. He's alive, and that's amazing. At the 10th minute, there was a time taken, but the game started. Denmark took a bad pass by Belgium, taking that opportunity, and Poulsen scored a goal that delivered everyone that watched both games Denmark played.
Yeah, very emotional game. Eriksen's health, we've talked about it every day, and we'll probably continue to mention it if there's ever updates, because it is, of course, the most important thing here in the story. I don't know whether one can have a career with something in your...
Daley Blind of the Netherlands, we're going to talk about later, has a heart defibrillator.
All right, so there's possible. So I'm sure that's what he's going to be focused on. But again, he's talking well. He looks okay, like all things considered in the photos that we're seeing. So, and look, Denmark is the most hard done by team in this tournament. But, they might not think of it that way. They might be having more reflection. But if you want to look at it from a sporting perspective, to have him go down and, that causes you to lose the game that you would have totally expected to win. And then to play as well as they did today, but run into, a second half performance by Belgium that, driven by one player in particular coming back into the fold. Bad luck, right? Denmark was a lot of people, including one of their dark horse picks. I'm still proud of that, calling them the dark horse in this, because I think their play has reflected that. But they're 0-2. They're still in a statistical chance to get one of those best third places. They need to get the full win, and they need to score some goals in it. That's what it comes down to. So they're still in with some hope, and I think most of us will be cheering for them in that final game. But as we say, the real win, the Eriksen news,
and that will be, of course, Russia will be the next opponent of Denmark. Now let's talk about the Belgium side. You mentioned Kevin De Bruyne, and that's when it all changed. At that point, it was still 1-0 Denmark. Not like Denmark was dominating, but the score was holding. And it wasn't looking that likely that it would maybe not go sideways. Maybe a draw was in the books, but Denmark was being brave in European words. And then Kevin De Bruyne was substituted in halftime. And 10 minutes later, the nicest assist I've seen all year. Yes, Duane, you're going to tell me, well, maybe I should watch Manchester City play more often. Maybe. But that pass, that Lukaku to De Bruyne, but De Bruyne is patient to wait, just go around the defender, kind of fake shooting, and then delivering a perfect pass-through ball to Way all alone, Thorgan Hazard, who just tapped it in for the equalizer.
No one in the world does the curling it just around a defender, perfectly hitting the foot on stride so that the player can score in one motion. No one in the world does it better than Kevin De Bruyne. As you say, I watch him all the time, and it's a joy. He's a brilliant footballer. You're getting an illustration of how devastating it was in the Champions League final, too, to see him go out from a City perspective, because at that point, to having that type of quality not on the pitch for you suddenly made that very different. So maybe they should have given a red card, but we'll leave that alone.
Yeah, exactly. Rudiger, who's playing for Germany, of course. And that'll be interesting to see when Germany face Belgium, because it might happen in this tournament at some point.
Yeah. No, just, God, it was a great performance. That half was maybe the best half I've seen by a player in this tournament so far. And
because he scored the second goal, which was the game winner.
Yeah, it was just incredible, and it didn't look like he missed a beat. I mean, obviously it was a face injury, so as long as your bravery isn't impacted, you shouldn't really have much issue getting back in the lineup. But especially if you've only been out for 2 weeks. Yeah,
it's also like, can you breathe? Yes. Okay, good. We're good to go.
Yeah,
just take something for the pain. If you breathe, you're good to go.
Exactly, and look, they're 2-0 as well, and they're through. You have to. I mean, you're the one. I picked them to make the final, so I don't know. I'll ask you.
Well, I was skeptical because they were like we say on the show quite often, in show me, don't tell me territory. Well, they just showed me.
Yeah, you have to consider them among the favorites after seeing that performance.
It was also Denmark, Denmark without Christian Eriksen, and the first game was also Russia, which might be the second worst team in this tournament.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. Like, I mean, obviously, we talked about Italy the other day too. You could have the same conversation with them, in terms of who they played, but who they have played, how they played in it has been brilliant in Italy's case and in Belgium's case. 3 of the 4 halves they played have been pretty damn special. So I look forward to their next game, and they are a joy to watch that team too in the tournament. I think for a neutral, you could do no worse than pick Belgium as your team. They have a lot of brilliant talent on that, and they really are in a golden generation that is right at the end. For a lot of them, I mean, De Bruyne will have another cycle, but some of you look at their backline in particular, and this is it. I'm not even sure they're going to make the 18 months, right? So that they're probably playing with a little bit of edge because they know they're not going to get any more chances.
Exactly. Speaking of Group B, who wrapped up game number 2 after this Denmark and Belgium game at Parken Stadium in Copenhagen that finished today just past 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Belgium, top of the group after 2 games, a 2-win, 5 goals for, only 1 goals against, for a +4 differential, 6 points. Russia second because of their goals. Their goals against, this is the weirdest thing. Russia, Finland, both on 3 points, and Denmark has no points in the bottom of the group. Of course, with a win, Denmark, who will face Russia to wrap up the group stage for B. Belgium will face Finland also.
Yeah, and you could definitely see a three-way tie at the bottom of that group. So the Danes have a lot to play for. You know, it's not the craziest set of results. In fact, the set of results that would lead to that are the most likely. So that Denmark-Russia game will be vital. Yeah, look, we're all cheering for them. I think it would be lovely to get them another game and maybe do something in here and have a chance when they're fully able to do it. But as you say, one player is going to be missing for sure. Just final thought on the game we were talking about most recently. I think that to me, the Belgian game was the best game I've seen in this tournament so far in terms of the compelling. Like, it was still compelling. It was so like all of it.
And the fans, like the fans aspect. Let's not kid ourselves. There's a lot of fans in Bucharest.
Yeah, that was another part of it. I think maybe unfortunately, the circumstance is not great, but it was the first sporting event I've seen, other than maybe a couple hockey games with the full crowds in the States.
So I said it's in Copenhagen, of course. Well, I don't know why I said Bucharest, because that was like just before. So.
Different country. It felt like the old days again, and that's anything that makes me feel like the before times is okay with me. So yeah, great game.
Now moving on to the last game of the day, we had the Netherlands facing Austria. Austria missing their best player, arguably, maybe second best, depending of if you rate David Alaba that high. But Marko Arnautovic, who scored a goal last game, but doing so yelled and insulted some players. And at that point, David Alaba and other players knew something was going to happen. They tried to make him stop talking, but too late. UEFA has suspended him for insulting, allegedly a racial slur, and a racial insult that he did say out there. He was missing for this game. The Netherlands, Memphis Depay, and the Orange has scored 2 goals. This time, the defense held and kept a clean sheet, 2-0 win for Frank de Boer and his men.
Yeah, he was a slur against Albanians, which the player was of Albanian descent. He yelled it to. So at any rate, it's good that they took action on it in that case. And you can see, if you look back at the replays of him holding his face to try and shut him.
They're literally like, shut up. And they're trying to hold his face. And they're like 7 guys around him. They knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, and look, that's good that they stood up and told him not to do that. And it's good that UEFA acted. We've too often seen them not act. That words of action are all these just words you get in terms of action. Like, no one will do something that's significant in the sanction, but this is a case of that, and it's good to see. But in terms of the game, I just said that the previous game was one of my favorites of the tournament. This one, although there was a great atmosphere and the orange makes it lovely to look at, honestly, thank God there were fans there, because it wasn't much of a game otherwise. The Dutch, not the Danes, the Dutch, too close. The Dutch, this isn't your dad's Dutch, right? Certainly not your granddad's Dutch. It's more of a pragmatic, modern version of it, which just isn't as fun to watch, which is unfortunate, because we talked about it in our preview show how the that 2000 Dutch team was so special. It's nothing like that. This is
De Boer was maybe the less fun player to watch on that team, and he's the coach.
Yeah, and that said, they've qualified first time since 2008, which is remarkable. They've gone to the knockout round of major tournament, against 2010 since the major tournament. They've been to a knockout round, and in 2008 since it's in the Euro. 2010, obviously, they made the World Cup final. It's remarkable. It's been a decade, right? And they were in the wilderness for the Dutch for a decade. I think part of that reason that they, struggled was because they were too stubborn in their approach.
Selection. Yeah, they kept picking Robin and company too long.
Yeah, and their tactics, they demand the 4-3-3 and it has to be free flowing and all that sort of stuff. And it was, in 2010 they sort of went away from that, and then there was such a pushback the other way. And now I think that they figured out a way to do it. I wasn't impressed with them today because I don't rate Austria, and they just worked a little too hard. After they got the early lead, I thought maybe this thing was going to be a rollover, and then Austria just hung around.
Yeah.
They don't have much punch, Austria. It doesn't help that their best player is in the middle of the defense.
And the other one suspended.
Yeah. They just never looked likely to me in that game, and maybe there was a bit of score effect after they scored so early. But again, if you're Holland, you just got to take the points and move on because that's what they did. They're moving on.
Yeah, exactly. They're moving on, and that's the important part. Dumfries scored later. No, I'm not talking about stupid piece of side dish that you eat that are cooked in fries, like not Dumfries. That's just his last name. We're tired. Long days. That's what happens. I need more water and start drinking less Coke, maybe. Or maybe, like Pogba, I should just not drink, which I don't. So maybe that's good.
Yeah, I'm sure your diet is not. I can imagine the hours you're working.
Thank God for coffee. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not great. Try and get some exercise.
I went for a walk with Stevie today. That was good.
There you go. That's important. It'll keep you alert. Keeps the mind flowing.
I'm also going to bed early today. So as we finish talking about this game, I'm pretty much going to go to bed.
All right. Well, let's move on to preview that.
Tomorrow, of course, is another day, but tomorrow we're going to look at Group D in the Euro. And as I'm getting the schedule right in front of my eyes, because it all blends in at this point, tomorrow morning we have Sweden against Slovakia, Croatia, Czech Republic. Sweden is at 9, Croatia, Czech Republic is at noon, and maybe one of the games I was looking most forward to, and that would be England, Scotland at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. A rematch of November 30th, 1872 at the Old West Scotland Rugby Club, when for the first time in history, Duane, one international selection played against another. The birth of the international game. That's the game we're going to see tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, and if you're listening at Opera Bob's, get that table ready for me. At any rate, that should be a fun way to start our weekends, that one, right? And I'm going to have to get up and get my work done diligently so that I can get out a little early. But, we've been looking forward to that one for the entire tournament. I have anyway. And if you are of Scottish heritage, you've been looking forward to this one for 20 years.
for 2 decades at this point.
Yeah, and they're still in with the chance, the Scots too. If they were to get a result in this game, if they were to pull the upset, then they're right in the mythic of things. So it's not like it's just a derby in that sense. It's also a very important game. In England, I didn't think England was particularly impressive in their opening win.
No,
although
I have to agree, Duane. And there's basically a lack of realism and of opportunistic aspect, because they had 2 big chances that were missed. One, Phil Foden had the bar 6 minutes in, and 61st minute, Harry Kane had a great opportunity, but just wide. And statistically speaking, both of these goals should have been goals. They have expected goals of over 0.5, which means normally it should have went in. This should have been a 3-0 score, but exactly. The ball is still round, and the whole thing.
Yeah, you got to put them in. And that's what I'm saying, though. As in the Scots, their script doesn't need to be written or played out to you. We understand what their motivations and what their needs are. For England, though, they're playing what is undoubtedly a weaker team, what is a team that they would historically expect to win, and because of the derby aspect, would desperately want to not lose to for sure. But they need to perform. And the question I would have with this English team, who is talented. I mean, this isn't like an England team that is way overhyped in the terms of we've seen in some of the past ones, right? This is an England team that does have talent and, is in with a chance to win it. If you were to have a tournament play out, you play this tournament out in the simulation like 100 times, England probably wins it 6 or 7. So it's not impossible. So I guess give England a 6 to 7% chance of winning.
That's a good way to do it. Just simulate 100 games of FIFA and just keep tracking. You got your percentage right there.
Exactly. Well, that is the models they often use. But they need to put a marker down to impress me and convince me that they can win. Now they do have the home advantage throughout this entire tournament. They are the only team that does that. They do not have to leave their country. As I said the other day, they are by de facto case. If you
Pretty
look
much
at that
hosting, yeah.
forward, they are the host team in a lot of ways. But they got to put the marker down. And, the spectacle should be entertaining. The Scots will play it. The Scots will make that thing look good, and Wembley will be the closest we've seen to it being Wembley since pre-pandemic. So obviously we're focusing almost entirely on this in the preview. The other two games are important by, the standards of the tournament, but pale in comparison in terms of the storyline, the narrative, right?
Exactly. The only storyline I could say is I want to see Slovakia confirm the result. Can Robert Mack and Marek Hamšík continue to build that confidence and give the service to the great player? Will Schick continue his amazing performance and replicate a 2-goal performance? Maybe. We'll see. He still has the goal of the tournament in my mind, while scoring almost from midfield against Scotland. But Croatia, Luka Modric. Can the 36-year-old Luka Modric still be the solution for Croatia's offensive trouble? That's a good question.
Yeah, and look, there are storylines there for sure. This is the World Cup finalist, and I talked about England not looking particularly impressive. Well, they beat Croatia, so what's that say about them, right? So there you go. It's not that I'm not going to watch. It's just I'm more interested in the final game.
Exactly. England, Scotland. Hope you enjoy. In Canada, it's on TSN and, of course, TVA Sport. I'm going to preach for my choir, TVA Sports. I think we're doing an amazing job. And, by the way, if you're listening to us anywhere on any platform, thank you very much. You can follow Duane on social media at 24th Minute, myself at Kev Laramee, and this show at Soccer Today SPN. As always, until next time, have a great soccer.